beauty the key to aging gracefully? In my research paper on thoughts, emotions, facial expressions, and aging, I proposed the pathways by which our mental and emotional world directly shapes our aging phases. The last few podcasts have focused on how the brain influences our facial aesthetics and how our own psychological traits can influence how we perceive aesthetics in others. Today's podcast goes into the realm of our imagination. At the heart of it is my belief that beauty is imagined. This seems like a heavy topic, but I assure you that my intention is to convince you that there is another perspective to beauty and aging other than what may be commonly believed, whatever that is, in whatever age. This statement itself shows you how fleeting these trends are, but that is a subject for another day. Let's start with what we can readily identify with. Remember when you were a child what your favorite toy was, or your dearest childhood memory. When I prompt you to recall, what comes to mind? Well, it would have been an image. Was it in our mind's eye? Or could it have been from the heart? The very exercise of recalling a memory is an act that engages our mental and emotional faculties simultaneously. Now, I'm just curious if we were to observe for our facial expressions. While doing so, I do expect that would correlate to the emotions we felt while remembering. I hope that got your attention. Right now, we turn our focus to how that can help us qualify the role of imagination as a therapeutic outlet. Art therapy is a growing field with numerous evidence-based benefits. As we increasingly look to psychological wellness as a good foundation to graceful aging, it is helpful to unravel various science-backed methods to better regulate our emotional world. Closely studied alongside art therapy is the influence of imagination on psychological states. We have covered in earlier podcasts how philosophers have demonstrated that beauty and the perception of aesthetics is closely linked to thought and emotion. Today, I want to share how imagination directly influences neurological pathways, potentially the skin, and how I feel it can eventually be harnessed to allow us to experience beauty more intensely. Notice I used the word intense to describe the experience of beauty. Now that is because I truly believe it is an emotion and not a standard. If you are listening still, I wonder if you have already changed your mind about beauty. If so, that may just be a little anecdote that serves to show that even in the absence of any true scientific evidence which I have yet to present, our perceptions of beauty are truly as emotional and personal as the memories we recall. Imagination, also called mental imagery or mental practice, is a conscious simulation of a stimulus or an event that can impact perception, cognition, and emotion. This is a quote directly taken from a paper by Gosselin in 2006. Mindfulness therapy is a growing area within the medical research field, with practical applications in cognitive behavioral therapy, psychiatry, and neuroscience. It has been shown to reduce stress levels and promote better control of our emotions, promoting psychological wellness. The benefits of imagination therapy, however, are not as widely known, though there has already been good research published on this topic. Now, what we need to know is essentially that imagination induces neural plasticity. Neural plasticity is the phenomenon whereby the network of the brain's nerves can be observed to constantly grow, reorganize itself according to various dynamic stimuli. This is a highly beneficial process whereby the brain rewires, allowing it to adapt to new challenges and allows it to function more efficiently than before. An interesting fact here is that researchers have found that imagination therapy activates the parts of our brain responsible for real-world perception. So in that sense, our imaginations do influence reality. The most beautiful things in the world are found in our imagination. Think about this for a while. Do you agree? Well, we actually don't need any research to tell us if this is true or not. We can look inside ourselves and discover if indeed it is true for us. More often, our beauty standards are associated with a person or an image that we may not even be personally acquainted with. But there is a reason why we are so attached to this ideal. At its core, it is an internal emotion driven by a memory. Through this, sports psychology already tells us that imagination has a specific purpose in enhancing performance. In the real world, a fact already proven in athletes who undergo such therapy. Based on this, I feel that more research can be done on how imagination can be used as a key tool to regulate emotions. This has tremendous implications on the treatment of body dysmorphophobia, for example. As a case in point, body dysmorphophobia quite literally presents as a bona fide affliction of the imagination. Sufferers imagine defects and disfigurements on themselves which are not consistent with reality. Now, is beauty an imaginary space outside reality? To the extent that one believes something to be true, that becomes a reality. Unfortunately, as dermatologists, we do see that working pathologically in the realm of psychodermatology. Delusional parasitosis, neurotic excoriations, these are specific psychiatric conditions that subsequently lead to a true skin condition. Our subconscious mind is constantly assailed by media messaging. The subject of beauty standards seem especially effective for marketing. As a dermatologist practicing cosmetic dermatology, I wonder often if our stance on aesthetic enhancements will affect the psychological well-being of an aging population in the long term. Natural-looking tweakments become the best version of yourself. Everyone wants to look good. These are used to justify our cosmetic dermatology interventions. Sure, do whatever makes you happy as long as it makes you happy. However, as medical doctors first, we may find ourselves in an uncomfortable place one day when our patients find that there is never enough. Worse still, to discover if our 2 or 3 decades of cosmetic dermatology practice has directly or indirectly contributed to this. Patient dissatisfaction is a phenomenon readily associated with aesthetic practices, and research has correlated this with personality traits and psychiatric comorbidities. As a follow-up to my initial paper, I do think that exploring the realm of imagination therapy as a tool to regulate emotions may be a viable method of graceful aging. Simultaneously, this can reduce overall personal dissatisfaction, a risk factor for various psychiatric disorders likely to become more prevalent in an aging population. When effective, imagination holds a unique advantage as an emotion regulation tool because it is changeable, internally directed, and dissociated from immediate sensory input, according to authors Taylor et al. In 1998. Knowing now that our aging faces are indeed influenced by our dominant facial expressions, which in turn are affected by our emotions, most often related to the thoughts we conjure, perhaps we can apply imagination therapy as a viable means of attaining beauty, with or without aesthetic interventions, as a means of improving patient satisfaction.